In a world often riddled with division, that feeling of more stands as a beacon of unity and understanding, honoring the rich tapestry of human experience. Embark on this transformative adventure with Alana as she reveals the hidden depths of our collective spirit and awakens the limitless potential residing within each one of us. Join Alana as she journeys alongside others who have embraced voice within. Get ready to be moved, uplifted, and forever altered as you uncover the essence of the soul's journey, guided by the insightful and compassionate Alana Green.
Hello and welcome to another episode of That Feeling of More. Again, it's Alana Green and I'm just so happy to have you here and watching along. I've actually set this up so I should be able to post this right up on YouTube, so I'm super excited for that. To be able to engage people there as well and share some of the story. So that's it. Today, actually, I just wanted to come on and share a little bit about my story, a little bit of the background so you can get to know me a little more in this process and along this journey. So again, my name is Alana Green. I'm from a small town in Prince Edward Island, Canada. And that's in the east coast of Canada for those that aren't too familiar. So in the very east coast in the Atlantic region. Anyway, so I grew up here. I've been an island girl my whole life and have just loved the journey that I've had here. But the thing with being in a small town is there's been this journey of, there's a whole lot of like, what's the word I'm looking for? Judgment and stuff like that. Like in a smaller town where you get to know, everybody knows everybody's story and you carry some things from when you were younger to when you were older. And this is been my journey. And, but this isn't about the things I've overcome at this point. We're just going to talk about some of my story that's brought me to this point, to this podcast. And we'll probably get into in the, as I was talking about doing these awakened moments that I want to share with people, these aha moments and these parts of the journey that I want to share about my story. And that's where we'll kind of get into the overcoming of things. But for this episode, I really just wanted to talk about me and the journey that I've been on since I started this awakening. And that's the thing is that, so for me, I have always had that feeling. And I'm sure some of you that are listening have resonate with that. It's just having this feeling inside that there's something else. And looking back over my journey, and I'll kind of cover some of that, but looking back over my journey, I could see where I now in this space, what that meant and what I was seeking. And I didn't really know what that was then, but I just have unfolded to this point. So going back there, I was a baker by trade. So I started my career as a baker. I love to bake. And this is the thing, life just kind of takes us down this journey and we don't even feel like we're steering it. And that was the case for me. So I graduated high school and I was like, oh, okay, now what, right? That classic question of now what? And I just decided to follow my heart. So I did used to listen to my intuition and have listened to my intuition along the way, although I didn't know what that was at the time. But I started back then. And like I said, just followed my heart. I love to bake. And I followed that feeling of what that looked like for me. So what I did is I love to bake. I used to bake when I was younger. I used to get up at like 10 o'clock or be up at 10 o'clock at night baking cookies just because that was something I love to do. I love to eat baked goods. So I kind of was just part of that journey. Anyway, so I started off as a baker and I went to a pastry arts program and loved that. And the thing again about being on a small island, I was looking for a job and a career of which I could apply those skills because I love to just create. I loved the creation process of it because I do have a creative background. My dad was an artist for many, many years and taught that most of his life. And so I did have this creative outlet and I used this as the creative outlet. And when I graduated, I wanted to stay here locally. And so I was trying to get a job and couldn't really find something where I could, outside of a seasonal job, that I could have that creativity. So I kind of went into line cooking and went and spent time in kitchens. And then I had kids and I was spending evenings and weekends and holidays in kitchens all the time. So at some point I sat down and I said, okay, there's something else here that I've got to change and create differently in my life. So I did go back to school and I took a sport and leisure program where I got to work with youth, which is one of the things I also did in my past. I still do. I was a cadet when I was younger, and then I have carried that through the cadet program. For those that don't know, is a youth program for kids from ages 12 to 18. And when I aged out at 18, I stayed on as an officer with the unit, and I've been there ever since. It's one of those things that I've just carried along with me. And anyway, so it's a youth program, and I coached. I did all kinds of different things there. So I followed my heart there, and became a coach and stepped into recreation and helping people in that way. But very quickly, I knew that wasn't really the space that I really wanted to be in. But the thing was, I kept this feeling of more, that I kept seeking something different. I would be at a job, at any one of these jobs, either in the kitchen, and I went to multiple different kitchens in my life. I went from one thing to another, and I was known for only staying at a job at the maximum of 3 years, and I would find something else. And for me, it wasn't like I ever, I wasn't fired, but I just would move. I'd be constantly moving to something else. I thought I was just getting bored. I don't know, and so I also, in that time frame, I also tried network marketing. I tried multiple different things, multiple different opportunities. And I'd go through each and every one of those opportunities, and I'd see people being successful, because I knew there was a way through network marketing that I could achieve my goals. I was always a dreamer. I always saw big visions of things, and I always saw, taking my kids places and traveling. I always had these huge, big dreams and, these lofty goals and ideas. But I could never, my results, my outside world didn't give me the opportunity to do that. And I didn't really understand why at the time. So I then, like I said, I gone from one opportunity to another, and I kept seeing other people being successful, and I couldn't figure out why I couldn't be successful. I knew, I could feel inside me, I had the potential, I had the knowing, I had the ability to do what they were doing. But for some reason, I was doing the things, like actively checking the things off that I was supposed to do, and what my upline in the network marketing opportunity at the time, because I went through multiple, like I said. And I would do all the things, but I didn't come across, or I never got the success that I really was seeking. And I was like, okay, well, maybe this opportunity isn't the right one. So then I would go to the next one, and I would go to the next one. I would try to these different opportunities. But what I didn't realize at the time, looking back now that I know, is that there was something within me that I didn't really understand, I had to unfold, I had to grow, I had to heal, I had to know about myself in order for myself to be successful. Anyway, so carry along down my journey on yet another network marketing opportunity. When I was then in my new career that I had for about 7 years, I was working with a not-for-profit. And had gone, up the ranks successfully. I've been there for 7 years, so yay. It was one of my first times I'd had been at the same job for over 3 years, because I loved it. I loved the environment. I loved the community. I loved the people I was working with. And I was also helping people that were vulnerable. And it was so rewarding to be in that space. But again, at some point, I still felt like there was more out there for me. And so I was doing these other network marketing opportunities, again, trying to create different results in my life. And the things were, I was moving up incrementally in my results, but very slowly. And so this is the thing, is that when I was in this last network marketing opportunity, I got connected with my upline, and she invited me to this community. And that's where I met my mentor, Kathleen Cameron. And she spoke, and everything she said just resonated with me. She talked about, this feeling of more, and I didn't really understand that. And she talked about the universe and source and this connection. And I was like, see, this stuff resonated with me. I wasn't really religious. I never, grew up at a church. We weren't really churchgoers. I would go with friends to school on Sundays sometimes, or go to church with my school friends on Sundays. And I would, I understood this God as a figure, as something outside of us. And it didn't really resonate with me. And I never really put much thought into it or put much effort into it. But when Kathleen started talking, she was talking about connecting to this source, universe. And I was like, ooh, that word feels better, because God for me was an identity, and there was nothing wrong with it, but it was an identity that was outside of me that just didn't feel that I connected with. So when she said source, universe, these words kind of spoke to me in a different way. So that felt different. And then things that she was saying, she was talking about success principles, and she was talking about the power that we have within ourselves, and all of these things that just made sense in the back of my mind. I was like, everything she expressed just made sense. And so I started listening. I started paying attention. But I listened for a little bit, and then I would carry on with my current results and my current thinking and be like, okay, well, I'll take some of these things and carry on and go. And she would motivate me and she would inspire me. But then I would get back into the old thinking, the old habits, the old paradigms that I was in at the time. And I would go back into the same routine and, end up having this Groundhog Day repeat. Like, not that my life was changing, but just in a very slow incremental pace. And not that there's anything wrong with that. I still had this burning feeling inside of me that there was something more for me out there. And so I just kept seeking, just gently putting feelers out there. But Kathleen in this community kept bringing me back. And I would go from one event because she was offering these one events to the next, or once a month events. And I would go to one event and I would go to the next event, and I would be inspired and motivated and re-plug into my career and re-plug into my network marketing opportunity and try to make a change in my results. And I would, again, kind of go up incrementally every little bit, every once in a while. You get your raise every year, those types of things. But I didn't really have huge shifts. And so about the third or fourth month that I had gone back to one of Kathleen's events, and I reached out to her and I said, I don't know why I keep coming back. This keeps drawing me back. And she's like, well, there's a reason for that. And I was like, okay. And I just listened and I paid attention. And then I got to the point where I was like, okay, this is really clicking. This is really making sense. And she had an offer to study yourself with her. And I saw the dollar figure on that offer. And I was like, whoa. I would love to learn about myself. I would love to continue this study, this understanding of what she was sharing. But I just, again, in my current results, I had moved myself up incrementally, but didn't have enough currency in my mindset, really, because it wasn't about the money in the bank account that I was seeing. It was about my current mindset. And my currency, my prosperity mindset, was at this limited space. And I didn't know that at the time, but this was the progression, the unfolding. So a couple months later, I had taken all of Kathleen's, not all of her information, obviously, but I had taken the tips and the tricks that she was sharing on her events. And I decided, okay, this is it. I'm going to implement these things. I'm going to do these things for a month. And my income's going to totally blow itself out of the water. And my network marketing business is going to be like skyrocketed, and my income's going to be totally different in a month. So I did that. I did the checklist of things. I did gratitude, and I did things like visualizing and meditation, except meditation for me, I couldn't even focus for more than 2 minutes at the time. So I'd dabble in it. I was consistent on, writing down my goal every day that month, but did I really feel it or visualize it? No. Anyway, so after a month, it turned out I stopped and looked at my results, and I was like, hey, wait a minute. Let's be honest here. Nothing's really changed. I've done all the things. I posted on social media. I did all the things I was told to do. But I just did them. Like checking them off a box on the list, because I love lists. I am such a list person. It was so easy to write things down and do them. I would just add things actually to the list so that I could just check them off and say that I've done. Anyway, so continuing on this journey, I connected with Kathleen, and I was like, okay, I'm doing what I'm doing. I'm doing the things, but nothing's changing. And I'm like, okay, there's something within me. At that point, it hit me. I'm like, okay, there's something within me that I'm not doing right. And I did take another smaller course. It was like $77. And it was just this course on learning about your habits and what your things in your past brought you to your future. And this is what everything says. It's either you're really seeking love from your mom or your dad, and what was that, and what was the pattern that you're creating. And I went through that course, and I was like, this isn't really the answer for me. I had equal love from both of my parents, and I had felt no lack there. So I was like, okay, so what is it that's still that's catching me? That's still catching me up. There's something here I'm still missing. So September of 2020, because I started following Kathleen in January of 2020, and then COVID happened, and I started paying attention, and I was doing some work from home. I was working from home and working remotely, and sometimes in the office whenever COVID was going on, because in the field I was in, we still needed to be in the space. And interact with people. We just had all the right protocols in place. Anyway, but so what happened was in September of 2020, I decided that what I was doing wasn't working. No matter what little courses I took or a little bit I invested in myself, that every time I tried to apply this information, it really wasn't making that big of a difference. So I decided, you know what? I didn't know how I was going to be able to afford to get into Kathleen's community and Kathleen's opportunity. But I just knew that I needed to do it for me. I knew that there was something within me that needed to change. And I couldn't identify what that was, but I knew I needed to do something. Because as you know, like the definition of insanity is doing the same thing over and over and expecting a different result. But I was doing the same thing over and over. I was in the same patterns, the same understandings for myself, and I didn't know what to change. And it's not that we need somebody to point it out, but when we're in the thick of it, when we're in the problem, when we're in the situation, when we're in the pattern, it's really difficult to see the reoccurring results for ourselves. We can see it in other people usually. We can reach out and pinpoint other people's problems and other people's issues, and I know exactly what your problem is and what you need to fix, but it is so hard to do it for ourselves. Anyway, so I found a way. I found a way to get into Kathleen's energy and to follow along her program. I put a deposit down and I made that work. And I started learning about me. And over the next few months, holy cow, did things ever change in my head. It was funny because when I started this journey, I remember talking to my partner, Don, and he is such a beautiful energy in my life, but he just would say to me, I'm like, no, I am the way I am. You either accept it or you don't. And the rest is just too bad. Like, this is just the way I am. Too bad. If you don't like it, go away. But I had to go back and apologize to him, since learning some of this information and learning more about myself is that we can change. I thought for sure that I was the way I thought. I had all of these distractions that easily distracted me. I had the squirrel brain. I had all of these different things that I couldn't change about myself. And he had to accept that. But like I said, I've had to go back and apologize because I've learned, yeah, I can change my thoughts. I can change my beliefs, because you know what a belief is? A belief is just a truth that you've told yourself over time, or a truth that someone else has told you over time. Society has told you that over time, or it's been in your environment. The people that are around you, they speak it and you accept that belief. So it's either accepted by others or accepted by yourself. Either way, you can change it. It was created through repetition, so you can change it the same way. So there's a secret little tip. How do you change a belief? Through repetition is one way. Anyway, so I started learning about myself. I started seeing some of these things, and I realized very quickly that the reason why my income didn't change, my results didn't change, my outside, environment didn't change too much, was other than just these little incremental awarenesses that I had that I didn't even realize were awarenesses at the time. Because our mindset, our self-image is our biggest success mechanism. And our self-image, the picture we hold of ourselves, the way we think about ourselves, the way we talk to ourselves when nobody else is listening, the conversation that goes on inside our head is our biggest success mechanism. So if you take a second and you think about the thoughts and the feelings that are going on inside your head that are unfiltered, that are, on repeat most of the time, if you think about those things, do you really think it's a very good success mechanism? If you're telling yourself time and time again, oh, that wasn't good enough, or, oh, I don't think I could do that, or I can't was one of my favorite ones, famous ones. I wasn't really a favorite looking back, but it was one of the famous ones I said all the time. But what if I can't wasn't that? It's not because we can't. It's because that's what we've been trained to believe. But what if I can't really isn't I don't want to? What if we turned it around and made it a choice? That's powerful. There's another little tip. So I realized for me and my story is that I always saw myself as normal. I was normal in marks. I was average. I had average marks. I didn't outstand anything. People would compliment me and talk about me and I wouldn't believe any of it. I just saw myself as average. I was average looking. I showed up averagely in the world. Everything I did, I was not overly successful. So when I look back over my life and I go, wait a minute, all of these opportunities, all of these different jobs, all of these different things that I did, well, if I just saw myself as average, no wonder my results were an average level, because that's all I thought of myself. So why would that be any different? So just take a moment and relate that to yourself. What are the thoughts and the feelings of yourself? And what might they be doing to your results? Anyway, so to carry on the journey, I started learning with Kathleen. That was one of my biggest aha moments that happened fairly quickly. One, I could change my mind. And two, I thought of myself as average. So then I started going down this journey of learning about myself. And very quickly, everything Kathleen was teaching was making sense. I was just hungry. I was so hungry to learn the information, to learn more, to know more. And this is another thing that came along the path fairly quickly too, was we collect information. We go through life and we collect information because we were taught from day one in grade school. We were taught to know things. We were taught to collect information. And when we collect this information, we're here to know it all, to memorize it so we can regurgitate it on a test. So that's how we learn. We go from over 12 years. We learn to learn things, but we do not learn to really apply it to our life. And this is the difference between personal development and professional development. We learn and we understand things to know, to be able to regurgitate, to be able to use that information to our advantage like we would on a test. But what we need to, when we start, because I used to do personal development, one of those network marketing opportunities I was talking about before was life leadership. And I'm not sure if anybody here, probably some of you may know or see or understand. But so it was an opportunity where we sold, as part of our network, personal development books. So a lot of the books I study now, I was selling back then, but one, I didn't read them. Well, I read them. I read the books, but I collected the information. And when you go to read a book and you're just collecting the information, it's just like studying for a test. You read through the information to be able to regurgitate it, know some of the information. 3 months down the road, you might remember 3 things, and then 6-7 months down the road, you might be able to look at the book and know one of the main principles of the book. A year later, you'd know the gist of the book, and that would be about it. And you'd be able to hold onto that because that one got repeated in your head multiple times. But to know the information in those books and actually live and breathe it was a different experience. And that's what we did. With Kathleen, we got to know the information and not just know it, but we start to embody it. And this is one of the most transformational things about this community and what Kathleen's done here is that it's not just taking the information, it's applying it to our life, understanding it and embodying it, living and breathing it. So that's a really good opportunity. If that's something that you feel that, you've been in the same journey, reach out. I would love to have a conversation a little more about that and help you with that idea. Anyway, so carrying on my journey. So since then, I very quickly, within 3 months of learning this information and really getting to it, I reached out to Kathleen and said, I need this. I need to do this all the time because I was consuming as much as I could. I was hungry, like I said before. I was consuming all the information. I was still just consuming it. I was having aha moments and I was growing myself. So I was changing in the process because I was listening to it over and over through repetition. But, and my results were changing. I was feeling different about myself. I learned I could change my mind. So I was changing beliefs. And I was accepting new ones. And then so as I continued down the journey, I reached out to Kathleen and said, I need to do this all the time. And she's like, okay, do you want to coach? And I'm like, I don't know. I just need to do this all the time. So very shortly after that, she offered a coaching opportunity and a coaching certification course, which I jumped on as soon as I could, as soon as I was able. And within a month of that, I put in my notice in at work because I knew I felt called to do this all the time. There was a knowing within me that I just knew I needed to do this. Anyway, so to kind of fast forward through this process a little bit, I know I've been a little lengthy on a few things, but there's been some good tidbits in here that I needed to share. But what I wanted to share too about this story was, so like I said, I left my job. So within the 6 months of starting this material and learning with Kathleen, I had left my job and replaced my income. And it was an incredible journey. I received the freedom of my time back. That was one of my goals. On my vision board, I've had many, many vision boards, and I've had one up for quite a while. And those pictures were stuff I was seeking was around for a little while. So I looked, and one of the biggest things on my vision board was to get my time back, my time freedom. And so when I left this opportunity, I left my job, I gave myself that opportunity. I gave myself that goal, that I received my time back, because since I started this opportunity, I've been self-employed. I mean, I work with Kathleen, alongside Kathleen, but I'm in my own business. I get to choose my hours. I get to do what I want. I get to live my life. And I have my own freedom. So that was one of my goals that was achieved. And then again, there was an opportunity for me to work with Kathleen on this team. And I applied for it and I got it. I held the vision for it. And every time since, there's been an opportunity that's kind of shifted, and I've applied myself to it. And I knew I was here for a reason, because this message I hadn't heard before. I'd heard this from Kathleen. Like I said, I've been in opportunities where I learned about personal development and I read these books, but I didn't even in that opportunity where we were selling these books and helping each other with the leadership and helping each other in these different aspects, this really wasn't taught. So this was a totally different mind shift for me. I didn't understand a lot of this stuff. So I knew I needed to be here to help raise the voice, to help step out and share this message. So that's why I knew I needed to be with Kathleen and come alongside her in this mission of hers to help change the world, to help make a difference, to impact people's lives. Because when you start realizing that you are in the driver's seat of your life, it's powerful. Because before, as I said, life took me for the journey. I just kind of went along with whatever showed up. I like to do bake, so I took a pastry arts course. But no one ever asked me in the beginning of that journey, what would you love to see in your life? What do you want to see? What do you want your life to look like? I had these big visions and goals, but nobody ever showed me how to achieve them. So I knew this information, I knew this material, I knew this opportunity needed to be shared with more people, because I didn't know this. I'm like 40 years old now, and I was just learning this 3 years ago for the first time. So I'm here to share some of this message, to share some of the awakening, to share some of this understanding. This is just the beginning of the story. There's more to it, and I'll expand on it in another episode. But I needed to share this because if you can relate to this in any way, shape, or form, if some of this sounds like you, that, you kind of let life take you down this journey instead of you taking the journey of life, then there's a reason. And there's a reason why you're listening to this, and there's a reason why we're connected, and there's a reason why this story sounds very familiar. I would just love to invite you to connect with me, to have a conversation, to expand on this thought and this idea. And I'm going to continue to share my story, my journey along the way. And I just want to thank you for listening in today and taking the time and being open to what is possible. Because that's what this whole podcast is about, is to hear stories like mine, and I'll continue mine in another set. But to hear stories like mine and to know that there is more, that feeling inside of you is there for a purpose, that feeling like there's something else out there for me, that is your soul seeking a different experience, and you're ready for it. The reason why you feel it and know it and understand it and even see it is because there's something else out there for you, and your soul's seeking it. And I would love to connect and chat about what that looks like for you, because everybody's journey is different. And that's what this podcast is about. It's about sharing everybody's different journey, putting a louder voice to those things. My dog wants in. I'm going to have to stop and let him in. But anyway, I'll end with that. And if you have any questions, please feel free to reach out. You can connect with my website. It'll be on the outro. And we'll talk to you soon. Love you lots. Have a beautiful day.
Thank you, beautiful souls, for joining us today on That Feeling of More podcast with your host, Alana Green. We'd love to invite you to connect with Alana and our guests at lifeisajourneycoaching.com. And don't forget to hit subscribe so you can join us on our next journey of awakening.